Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Thursday Majlis at Home. For this week, we are doing Pearls of Wisdom, which is an event that is held at CMU every year. Pearls of Wisdom is an event where different staff and faculty members come and tell us stories from their lives and the lessons they've learned from these stories, therefore sharing their pearls of wisdom. For this year, we've asked certain staff and faculty members to send us videos of them telling their stories with the prompt, Lessons from Failure. As this is a topic that we all know way too well, and we really hope that we can take motivation from all of these stories and really cherish these pearls of wisdom. Anyways, that's enough talk from me. Let's give the stage to the guests, and I really hope you enjoy these wonderful stories.
Hi, I'm Michael Trick, Dean of Carnegie Mellon University here in Qatar. Student Majlis asked me to take part in this year's Pearls of Wisdom. While we can't do it in our normal location, I am still eager to pass along some of the thoughts to our now far-flung community. The prompt I'm working with is Lessons from Failure. Look, like everyone, I have a multitude of stories about when things went wrong, when I felt like a failure. Out of all of these choices, let me tell you the story of the very first job I ever had. It was 1976, and I was 16 years old, in grade 10, a high school sophomore in the US system, but I was in Winnipeg, Canada. I was finally old enough to work, and I was eager to do so. Finally, some spending money for pizza, gasoline, books, whatever I wanted. Now, I applied for some jobs, and I actually got the most prestigious job available to high school students in Winnipeg of that era. I got a job at the local Dairy Queen. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this august institution, Dairy Queen was and is a purveyor of fine soft-serve ice cream. Now, more recent DQs have branched into burgers, tacos, and the like, but the St. Mary's Road Dairy Queen near me was all ice cream all the time. And only the coolest of kids got to work there. I think the boss knew that if he hired cool kids, their friends would all hang out and he'd sell lots more ice cream. Somehow during the interview process, he did not latch on to the fact that, well, I had a very close and very wonderful group of friends. It was a relatively small group, and it wasn't exactly the ice cream eating group. But I got hired, and now I was not only going to earn money, but I was going to be popular and the envy of all at my high school. So I proudly went off to work at Dairy Queen, and I couldn't do the job. Now I'm sure you're asking, how can anyone not do the job at Dairy Queen? Well, you see this picture? That is a very nice ice cream cone as served by DQ and countless other places. It's beautiful, symmetric, solid, and it has a nice curl at the top. Creating this cone, however, requires coordinating both hands, one to control the flow of ice cream and one to move the cone about to form the requisite tower and curl. Unfortunately, my hands do not coordinate well. My cones ended up as very sad creatures. Something like this. Now, have you ever tried to pat your head while your other hand does circles on your stomach? Give it a try. Look, if you can do this, then you are well qualified to work at Dairy Queen. My hands can't do it. I was unqualified to serve ice cream there. I lasted 3 weeks. The owner eventually had to fire me. I was crushed. No spending money, no popularity, no nothing. I was a failure at 16. But then my parents helped me out by paying me to paint the house over the summer. I liked the spending money, and I will say I turned out to be a pretty good house painter. The picture you see is from 30 years after I painted the house, and I think you'll agree that is a wonderful paint job on that house. The next fall, I got a job in a big department store in downtown Winnipeg, Eaton's. Better yet, I worked in the book department. That job required remarkably little coordination, but did reward things like having a good memory and a pleasant disposition under pressure, particularly during the Christmas rush in those way before Amazon days. I went on to university, doctorates, postdocs, faculty positions, administrative positions, and I ended up here at Carnegie Mellon University in Doha. There were many successes and failures along the way, but I'm really happy where I've ended up. When I think back about my failure at Dairy Queen, I think there are a few lessons here. Now, a standard lesson about failure is always persevere. Look, I think my parents, my friends, my boss at Dairy Queen, and practically anybody who knows me would all agree this is terrible advice in this case. 40 years later, and I still cannot pat my head and rub my stomach. Look, I really wanted to succeed at Dairy Queen, but it was never going to happen. Better advice is to find something you are good at and see if you can make that work for you. I turned out to be a pretty good bookseller, but an even better student and teacher, so that is the path I went. But perhaps a more important insight is to recognize the impact of those around you when you fail. I was able to move on because my parents, my family, my teachers, my friends all helped me forward. And people like Ron Robinson and Don Kepron at Eaton's, names I remembered decades later, recognized I might be able to be successful there. And they are the reason that I went on a path that has led to CMUQ. Look, it's easy to laugh at my failure at 16. It was a number of failures and successes that have made me who I am today. So I'm now grateful for that experience. But 44 years later, the last day I was in that Dairy Queen was the day I got fired. Thank you for listening to my Pearls of Wisdom, and thanks to Student Majlis for inviting me to speak. To all of our CMUQ students, we miss you very much, and we hope you are back in the building very, very soon.
Hello, my name is Agustin Indaco. I'm a professor of economics at Carnegie Mellon, Qatar, and I want to thank the Student Majlis for asking me to talk about a topic I unfortunately know very well, which is about failure and hopefully learning from failure. So hopefully you can get something out of this as well. I wanted to start this off really with, more than anything, a story from a now retired professional basketball player called Ray Allen. So Ray Allen was a very good shooter, specifically a very good three-point shooter. This was a little bit before the time when Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson and the more well-known three-point shooters came into the league. But you can imagine that three-point shooting is this ability that the difference or the distinction between a miss and a successful basket is a few millimeters, centimeters at most. So really, there's a fine line between what's considered a success and a failure for basketball players. So Ray Allen had a very, very, very methodical preparation to games. So apparently he arrived to the stadium 3 hours before games, took the same number of shots from each different area on the field, changed into his proper uniform at the same time before game, and had the exact same warm-up leading up to the game. And he did this for every game, for every year in his career. And when he was asked why he had such a methodical preparation to games, he said, because I want to know that the outcome of the game was not dependent on my preparation. So that's a kind of a very key important thing, I think, here that we do a lot of the times wrong, is that we don't have the proper metrics to assess success and failure. We think that success and failure is whether we scored a basket or not, whether we got the job or not, whether we did well in the exam or not. And a lot of the times I feel the true importance in assessing your success or your failure is making sure that we're taking into consideration the proper metric. So in many times, for example, let's think about applying to a job. The most likely outcome, I'm afraid to tell you this, especially if you're a senior, is that the most likely outcome when you apply to a job is that you don't get that job, right? You have usually companies are looking to hire one person, and most of the time, a lot more than one people applied to that job, all very qualified candidates. all very smart, intelligent, and went to really good universities. So the most likely outcome for each individual applicant for a job is for them not to get the job, right? So in these sort of events, if you take the outcome of the event as your measure of success or failure, you're most likely not to think that you have failed in this particular task, that you have failed to get this dream job of yours that you applied for. So don't consider the outcome of the event, especially when these events are events that are one-offs. They are events that we call fat tails because they have this fat distributions. Don't consider the outcome of the event as your metric for success or failure, but consider your preparation for when you applied to that job, when you took the exam, when you were about to shoot a three-point shot. So in a way, taking Ray Allen's approach towards objectives, assess your performance when the professor hands you the exam, let's say, not the outcome of the exam, whether you got an A, a B, or a C on the exam. And the reason to do this really is because you can think that a lot of the times on the exam, for example, you're guessing between multiple choice questions, and you might have randomly picked three that you were unsure about. You picked them correctly and you got an A, and so you're very happy with your performance. Or vice versa, your friend who studied the exact same amount as you chose the opposite three multiple choice options, got them wrong, and then did a little bit worse than you, got a B or a C. So why would you consider your outcome a success and your friend's outcome a failure if in fact your preparation for the exam was exactly the same, just that out of luck you randomly decided to choose correct those three multiple choice questions when your friend did not? So really, you should measure your success or your failure towards an objective in your preparation to the event, let's say, and not on the outcome per se. And this is especially true in outcomes that have a high failure rate. For example, and these are a lot of them really, for example, when you're applying to a job, for us professors, a lot of times when we're sending papers to journals and so on. So really be very considerate of what metric you're using to evaluate whether your outcome is a success or a failure. Obviously, if you are consistently coming up short of your goals or you're not meeting expectations, then you probably need to reassess or reevaluate your preparation, right? If you're constantly not getting A's in your exams, even though you feel really good at the moment that the professor is handing out the exams, there's probably something wrong in your preparation that you need to change. So you need to reevaluate that constantly. But just because you did poorly in one exam doesn't mean that you did not succeed or that you failed in some manner. And the reason behind this is because a lot of the times the outcomes of a lot of the things we do are not really dependent entirely on our actions, right? You can think of an exam, maybe the professor included or did a very hard exam, or the person sitting next to you was doing this distracting noise that really threw you off guard and didn't let you concentrate on the exam. And if you're applying to a job, maybe there's a candidate that is the son or the daughter of the CEO of the company. So obviously that person has a strong preference. So you might have done everything perfect. You might have been super well qualified for the position, knew everything about it, but clearly those people had some sort of prior that they had a candidate they preferred over you for a bunch of reasons that are well beyond what you can control. So don't put too much emphasis on the outcome of these types of results, the outcome of these types of events, because again, a lot of the variables that go into deciding the outcomes are not dependent on you, and you should not evaluate your performance on things that really don't depend on you. And so again, be very, very careful what metric you're using to assess your success and your failure. And I would tend to suggest it's more on the preparation side than on the outcome side. And so to kind of wrap this around, I just want to say tell another story that always comes to mind. When I was working at the World Bank, just out of my master's, we had this big celebration for one of the bosses there, and we were celebrating that this person, very, very intelligent person, was the youngest person to become a senior economist at the World Bank. So there was this big celebration and everyone congratulating him. And when he had to say a few words, he said something that struck very deep to me, which was kind of in the same line of ideas that all these outcomes really weren't that dependent on him in this case. There was a lot of luck involved, there was a lot of circumstances involved, and so on and so forth. So he concluded by saying, don't get too proud of yourself for your accomplishments, but at the same time, don't put yourself down too much for your frustrations. And I think that's kind of the overall message I want to give everyone about learning about your mistakes. I know I kind of copped out of the question. It seems that I didn't talk about learning from mistakes too much. It's more about assessing really how to measure your success or your failures. I hope this was useful to some of you, and thank you again to the Student Majlis for giving me this opportunity. Bye.
Thank you to Student Majlis for letting me share a little bit of my pearls of wisdom. I shared a couple of years ago, so I tried to think about a different story to share with all of you, in case some of you have heard my middle child syndrome and growing up as a rebel before. But I just wanted to follow one of the excerpt that was given by the Student Majlis, which is something along the lines of learning from failure. So when I saw that phrase, the immediate thing that caught to me was, it brought me back to when I was 12 years old. So I'm not sure how many of you know about the Singaporean education system. So it's pretty brutal. So when you're 12, you sit for something called the primary school leaving examination. And that basically decides if you could go into like the best secondary school, or you're going to end up in a normal school and not make much of yourself, which is not true, but it's just perception, right? So what happened was, when I was 12 and I was studying for the PSLE, I always would put myself in the room, and I always got distracted. I was not a bad student, but I always tended to get distracted. I got focused on other things. So my parents were not the kind of people who put a lot of pressure on us growing up. They just let us, become whoever we want to be, which is sort of the kind of mindset that I have as a parent right now. But they just basically left us on our own in terms of figuring things out. Of course, we could ask them questions if we weren't sure about particular concepts, but yeah, so we're left pretty much on our own, and I always tended to be distracted. You leave me in the room and I'll be cleaning up, like stacks of papers and not studying. But I always thought that, hey, it's just the exam. I'm sure I can get through it. And I think my parents had a bit more hope on me as opposed to my other siblings. So when I did really badly, I did really, really badly. And it was a shocker to me. But it sort of like opened my eyes to the fact that if you do not work hard, you're not going to sort of like pass exams. You're not like, that natural intelligence that people talk about. You still need to put in the effort to be able to do that. So I want to say that my parents at that point were pretty disappointed, but they never really, scolded me or anything like that. And I always will remember my father. Because I couldn't get into that school, and my sister was already in that school. I was posted to more of a neighborhood school, which was co-ed. Co-ed meaning it's both boys and girls. My dad wanted us to go into convents, and he was upset about that. And he literally like went to the principal's office, the principal who was part of the CHIJ, which was the school I was going to get into. And he was like, please, let my daughter in, and things like that. And I remember the principal said to me, I'm only letting you in because your sister is in the school. And for me, that was like, wait, I need to prove my worth. And so I want to say the next 4 years that I spent in that school, I knew that to a certain extent I didn't get in because of my own merit, but it was more like, something that was offered to me, an opportunity, and I never wanted to let that principal doubt the fact that she took me in. So I worked really hard, but I played equally hard. I still, represented like the school in a proper manner. I was difficult, of course, like I did challenge authority and things like that, but I never let my studies sort of go down. And I did pretty well, and then I went on to a good junior college, and I'm happy. I'm proud to say that when I did leave that school, the principal basically did not regret the fact that she took me in, and all those words that were not said, but sort of like insinuated. Um, yeah, and so that was, I think, my first taste of failure. And I thank my parents actually for that, because they never really, scolded me in that sense, but they made me realize that it was my failure and I had to take ownership for it. And it wasn't something that they pushed me to see that you failed. I saw it myself. And I'm hoping that that kind of, life lesson I can teach to my children. And I will thank my father amongst all the others, in order, like, for him to continue to believe, because I think the school that I was in made a lot of difference, and made a lot of difference to my character building as well. So I have him to thank in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's my pearls of wisdom in a nutshell. Just, because now we're in a very, very difficult time and we're all trying to stay motivated. I just wanted to say, keep going, and you'll get there. But again, nothing happens without hard work. And put your, hard work in, and you will reap the benefits of it. All right. Peace out.
Good morning, Tartans. DR here. Pearls of wisdom have been described as wise advice, concise insights into life lessons that are as precious as pearls. When I was first asked to participate in Pearls of Wisdom, the prompt shared was lessons from failure, challenges overcome. There are so many moments in my past that I can describe as fails, and some were some epic fails. There's the time I got a D on a significant paper in graduate school. There was a major university publication that I was responsible for that I allowed to go to press with a huge typo in it. There's jobs that I wanted and didn't get, and there's a job that I loved and lost. In those moments, these failures were really, really hard. I felt I wasn't enough, and I felt that deeply and sharply. What I've come to realize, which is much more important, was what happened in those moments of failure, not the failure itself. When I allowed myself to set aside, or more honestly, be willing to share my embarrassment, my self-doubt, my vulnerability with someone else, every single time I found people actively present in my life and willing to encourage me, support me, pick me up, and inspire me to try again. Or maybe more importantly, nudge me to shift my perspective and to keep on growing and going, to learn from what I had failed at. Every single time, someone has been there and is there if only we allow ourselves to see them. In grad school, it was a dear friend that helped me laugh at my sloppy work. The funny thing is, she called this week as I was working on this Pearls of Wisdom reflection. The job I wanted and didn't get, it was an unlikely coworker who helped me get ready for the next job. The job I loved and lost, it was a cherished mentor who presented me with a new project that led me to so many new and great opportunities. Every single time, I needed someone to help me to believe in myself. Someone was there. Someone showed up. Each of these people showed up for me. They sat with me, they listened, and they offered encouragement. It's from their examples I learned the power of being present in the lives of others. Showing up in the lives of others is so much more important than perfection. And that's the pearl of wisdom I want to share. Presence, not perfection. There are so many ways to show up for one another, to be present. Maybe it's a text, or better yet, maybe it's a phone call. Never underestimate the power of your voice to lift others up. Maybe you're someone who writes cards and leaves them for your friends and family. The senior envelopes are a wonderful opportunity for you to show up for your classmates. Maybe you've been someone who's been lucky enough to receive a lovely care package. Now, maybe you become the person who sends the care packages. Maybe you simply show up and invite a friend for a walk, or to share a cup of carac or a Spanish latte. In whatever ways you can, I encourage you to be wholly present in the lives of your family, your friends, in the work you choose to do, and in our world. It matters, and you matter. You are enough, and you make a difference. I've invited 2 guests to join me today because they've had to listen to my advice or pearls of wisdom longer than any other 2 people I know, and I thought it was only appropriate that they be part of this.
Hi everybody, I'm Nick Camerlingo, son of Dean Renee. My mom asked me to hop on here to give me some advice that she's given me over the years, and the first one that comes to mind that I clearly haven't listened to is to get a haircut every 6 weeks. But other than that, when my mom did ask me to do this, the first thing that popped into my mind and the best advice that she ever gave me was to always step outside your comfort zone and always take risks. It's going to be hard. It might not always work out, but the pain of failure is a lot less than the pain of regret and not knowing and not doing. So whatever you do, always make sure you're pushing your limits, putting yourself outside your comfort zone, because that's where you really find who you are and what you're going to do. Oh yeah, and then last thing, it's always better to exercise when you're angry than to get in a fight. So, Maddie, you got anything to add?
Hi everybody, I'm Maddie, Renee's daughter, and sorry mom, but clearly neither Nick nor I took the haircut thing very seriously because I am also in desperate need of one. But some important advice that my mom has given me that I am thinking about a lot right now is to always do what we can for our community and the greater good, especially when times are hard. And most importantly, wash your hands. So we hope that helps you guys, and happy birthday, Mom. Love you.
Thank you, Nick and Maddie, for doing this. I love you. Thank you to the magical Majlis, and a special shout out to Mubarak for his editing skills. Let me close my reflection with these heartfelt words. Being present wins over perfection every single time. Be present in the lives of your family, your friends, the work you choose to do, and in our world. It matters, and you matter. You are more than enough, and you make a difference. Tartans, I can't wait to welcome you back to your building and to celebrate with you. Until we are together again, be well and be present.
And that was our last speaker of the day. We would really like to thank all of the speakers for participating and sharing these very valuable lessons with all of us. We would also like to thank all of you for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed today's Thursday Majlis at home. Just a reminder, student Majlis applications for next year are open right now, and they will remain open for only 3 more days. So we really hope you gained a little motivation from these pearls of wisdom to run if you were on the verge of running. Anyways, that is all from us today. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this week's Thursday Majlis at home, and remember to wash your hands. Thank you.
It's your turn to take on this unique opportunity.
I'm extremely excited to pass the torch and to see one of you embark on this incredible journey. Don't forget to apply for Student Majlis this year.
We urge all of you to apply and run for the position that you think fits you the best.
We encourage you all to apply and have a lasting impact on our CM unity.
Good luck to all of you applying. I can't wait to see who will be.
This is your time to give back to the community.
Make a meaningful change inside campus.
It is time for you to run and represent this community and be the leaders that we know that you can be.
I wish you all luck, and I'm hoping for the best for next Majlis.
We believe in you.
We believe in you, and you should believe in yourself too.